We're live.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast, proudly presented by Irish 31. Guys, Irish 31 and the USF Alumni Association will host Bulls Brewfest this Saturday, October 2nd at Irish 31 West Shore Plaza. Join Magic 94.9 and a stampede of Bulls fans for a special ramped-up indoor-outdoor Bulls bonus watch party with giant LED screens showing the game, local breweries sampling fall brews, Bulls ticket giveaways from Irish 31s, tailgate games, and more. Free admission and $10 sampling wristbands with 100% of the event proceeds donated to the USF Alumni Association. Horns up, Tampa Bay. Go Bulls. Well, guys, another week. We're 4 games into the season. A lot has happened. We've had 2 QB number ones.
3 QB number 2s.
Hoping this one sticks.
I hope they do another graphic for Timmy. Like, you know,
they really,
like cool. Like,
I mean, if they did one for Cade, they got to do one for Timmy, right?
It's just right.
I mean, it's only fair. I know there was that fan made one that was going around, but they need a Timmy McLean QB1 graphic with his beautiful mug on there.
Yeah, they need that. They need the feature from Joey Johnston. They need the walk and talk with Kaylee. I think her name's Kaylee, right?
Yeah, Kaylee.
Kaylee. I mean, they need to do it all. I mean, it's Timmy McLean. He's QB number 1. There's no way that this ends poorly. And it's just all for naught, right?
I didn't think so.
Well, guys, it's a jam-packed episode. Tonight we've got to put a bow on BYU, and then we'll look toward SMU this coming Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern on ESPNU. It should be an exciting game for someone, I would assume. One team's definitely going to leave the field happier than others. Hopefully, SMU doesn't injure any of USF's coaches while planting a flag, because Gary Patterson may come down and he's still a little upset about SMU trying to plant the flag at TCU last week, and apparently a coach got injured during the kerfuffle after the game. And
not just a coach, by the way, it was Jerry Kill. Which
what's he doing out there? What's he doing out there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Really.
It appears it was just it was friendly fire, so to speak. One of his own players kind of ran into him, knocked him over. Not a good situation all the way around.
And my advice to Gary Patterson and TCU is don't lose to SMU, and they won't be able to plant the flag in your home stadium. That solves a lot of issues, if I'm not mistaken, huh? So we're going to do the film room tomorrow night. But I wanted to kind of put a bow on BYU here. Steeg, you weren't on the post-game wrap-up with Seth and I at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why you weren't around. I think that's kind of rude at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Know what? I'm so sorry. I there was just other things happening.
It's whatever. I won't hold it against you, but USF looked pretty good, right? I mean, outside of that first quarter where I think everyone would agree, they thought, oh, my God, it's going to be 63-0 by the end of the third quarter at this rate.
Yeah, and that was, I think, kind of to be expected out of BYU coming out of the gate there. They, 3 weeks, or for the first 3 weeks of the season, they kind of ran through these Pac-12 teams, upset, 2 top 25 teams. And I mean, that I cannot remember their coach's name, Kalani Sitake. He's kind of. I could probably guarantee he came out and preached like, "We're coming out fast. We're coming out fast. We're coming out fast." His probably goal was to score 35 points in the first quarter, just to open and close that book as soon as possible for his team, which is fine. That's their philosophy on things, and I think I was kind of expecting that. And for USF, I think they did get exactly what we kind of talked about previously, almost week over week, is they got punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth at NC State, gave up a touchdown in the first round. Florida got punched in the face by Anthony Richardson the entire time. At FAMU, whatever, but for BYU, they got punched in the face immediately, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall there. You know, we've kind of been damaged by previous regimes, and that's not the best way for USF faithful to rally around their team. So for them to go from 21-0 to, getting a few drives put together, getting a few field goals put on the board, at halftime you're thinking, all right, well, it could be worse. At 28-6, I think is what it was. It could be worse. But man, that second half is where I think we can just hang our hats on and say, this is a good turning point in the team. That is exactly kind of what you wanted to see, was the team being able to not just make some stops on defense, and blocking a field goal there and making a play and turning right back around and doing a 94-yard touchdown drive. Like, when is the last time we've seen a USF team kind of go end to end like that? Hold a team on fourth down, force a field goal, block the field goal, then turn right around and score on an ensuing drive like that. Like, that's the kind of football team that we want to root for, but we haven't gotten in the last couple of years. So I'd say, if they can have the memory of a goldfish and forget that first quarter and turn around and do that consistently, who knows what this team is capable of. That was exciting, was just everything that was happening basically after that first quarter.
I agree. And Seth, we kind of touched on it in the post-game show. It's kind of been the MO under Jeff Scott so far at USF. They either, win, against Citadel, and then, the next week, blow out against Notre Dame. Sure, it was going to happen anyway. Or you play these teams really close, one-score game, and then the following week you lay an egg. And that's what USF's going to have to avoid this week against a very talented SMU team, right? Going back to last year, they played Cincinnati pretty dang close. So, that kickoff return for touchdown that made it, I think it was made it 28-7 after USF had scored, kind of broke the camel's back, so to speak. But they were in it for a good portion of that game. And then that following week, lay an absolute egg against ECU, lose by 20. And then you come back, you play Temple close, you lay an egg against Tulsa. Come back again, November 7th at Memphis. You're leading for a lot of that game. You come back, lay an egg against Houston. So they've really got to find the balance of, okay, we were good here, let's carry it into the next game. And they haven't been able to carry it into the next game, right? FAMU, they finally win a game. They immediately go down 21-0 in the first quarter. So that's the part of this learning process that I want to see sped up. Seth, maybe I'm dead wrong. Your thoughts on how, and if I'm a little off base on trying to correlate the two things with the progress that we're seeing already.
No, I mean, I think you're right. The one thing is, that I think you hear a lot in coaching too is progress isn't necessarily linear. So sometimes it just comes in jumps, and then you might sit for a while stagnant. I feel like this USF team's progressing. You obviously want to see it carry into the following game, and the goal kind of this whole year, we've said from the beginning, is you want to see that progression from game one to the final game, see them getting better. I think we're seeing that. It seems to come in drips and drabs a little bit and then a bunch. So Florida, the first half was terrible. Really, the second quarter of that Florida game was really bad. And then the second half, bang, big jump. First half, FAMU, big jumps. Second half, kind of nothing. Then first quarter, BYU, really bad. And then after that, pretty good. So obviously you like to put it together from the beginning of a game. It would be nice. But I think you're seeing them make progress. And this week, the interesting thing this week to me was last week big progress, and I think some of it was progress, or was last week kind of style of opponent offensively for USF. BYU didn't bring it, and we'll look at it tomorrow more closely, but BYU was more apt to kind of sit back, give McClain a little more time, let him get a little more comfortable, get into the game, and once he got comfortable, he was on. Is SMU going to play like that? I don't know, but they're also actually worse statistically on defense than BYU is. So you hope to see that momentum carry over, But that'll be the interesting thing to me. Can they play the same way and successfully against kind of a different style of defense? Because I think that's the style of defense last week that lends itself to some success, or at least letting you get comfortable. Is it going to be the same this week? Can they carry it over to a different style? And maybe that's been the issue like the last couple of years. Some styles, some teams they match up well with, and you really see that progress. And the next week, maybe the matchup isn't as good, and then they drop down a little bit. You want to see them carry that over regardless of opponent. And I think you'll see that this week. I think you'll see some success, but that'll be kind of what I'm watching for.
Exactly. And BYU's defensive coordinators said as much this week that they kind of underestimated Timmy's athleticism. They knew he was a pretty good passer. They went back and looked at his high school tape, and it showed off that he was a good passer, but they underestimated his athleticism. I don't think you're going to catch too many more teams by surprise with your athleticism. I think they're going to. I think they're going to take bits and pieces of that FAMU game that really gave Timmy some struggle. Those double A gap blitzes bring guys off the edge. As you said, styles make fights, right? And BYU is definitely a rush 3 drop 8 kind of team, and SMU, they're going to take their chances because they've got a high octane offense, so they can afford to be a little bit more aggressive defensively. And the thing looming over this game that we haven't even touched upon is SMU's defensive coordinator is one Mr. Jimothy Levitt.
I'm gonna hate some of these post game tweets that are like, oh, what could have been if USF had hired Jim Levitt instead of Jeff Scott as a head coach, or bring back Jim Levitt.
I really hope that the TV announcers do Joel Miller, if they do bring up Jim Levitt being there, do him a service and tell him exactly what happened, right? Don't skirt around the fact that there were some misdeeds or alleged misdeeds. He hit the kid, all right? And that's why he was no longer the coach. And then he lied about it. And then he tried to get other people to lie about it. That's why he's no longer coach. Judy Genshaft tried to save his ass, and he wouldn't take it. Okay? Judy said, just admit what you did, and we can get out of this. And Jim, being the hard-headed son of a bitch he is, refused to do so, and that's why he was out of football for a few years before latching on with the 49ers and then slowly rebuilding his profile. But that's why. All right? I don't want for everything he did for USF, and I don't want to get into a tangent here, but for everything he did for USF, that one moment is something that should not be skirted around with this TV broadcast. Now, I say all that to say this SMU offense is killer. There's a reason why Tanner Mordecai was at Oklahoma. All right, and you've seen it through 4 games, 20 touchdowns, completing 70% of his passes, going up against a very, 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 very depleted USF secondary. So I don't know how well they'll match up. I think USF's got their work cut out for them this week. But final takeaways from BYU before we kind of put it to bed before we go to this week.
Regardless of what I said earlier about the style of defense and kind of letting the offense kind of get comfortable, I think the other factor in that game is that it was a really, really intense atmosphere, seemed to be a really good crowd, and that did not faze them. So I think regardless of whether or not maybe the styles helped a little bit, that was important to see them kind of play through that kind of atmosphere. I don't know if they're going to see anything like that in conference this year. You guys know better than me, but I wouldn't imagine so. So that's definitely going to be a great experience to go forward, and that's why you play these big time out of conference games, is to get those kind of learning experiences. So when you're getting conference, it makes everything a little bit easier.
100% agreed. And it should be noted, Timmy was 17 of 24. For 186 yards. That is damn impressive for your first road start.
He didn't start particularly well. was messaging our friend Steeg here, and I was like, I don't know if he's ready, man. He did not look good. That first screen pass, he about threw over the back's head, and if he hits him in stride, he probably picks up a first down, and then they go out on 4 plays. But man, once he found the game, he was great, especially for a young guy.
Yeah.
So I thought he really kind of went from the beginning. I was like, man, I don't know if he's ready. And then by the end of the game, you're like, this dude can play. Right? He was not afraid. He kind of, once he found himself in the game a little bit, he really stepped it up and threw the ball better than he has all year. So that was a good development to see him hit some of those intermediate throws. It seemed like they cut down on the full field stuff. I mean, we talked about that at halftime, but a lot of it was like play action, hit the dig coming across. And he was hitting those guys on time and on target, and then doing a great job avoiding the rush and doing all that kind of special athletic stuff he can do that a lot of guys can't. But he did a good job throwing on time and on target too. It wasn't just like he was running around the whole time. So I was really impressed with how much better he got during the game.
Yeah, and to your point, he was 10 of 11 passing in the second half with completions of 11, 17, 26, 17, and then that final absolute dart to Xavier Weaver on that final touchdown drive, which was it was huge. Like that's the zip on the ball that you need in the middle of the field. That I think at NC State he was a little hesitant to pull the trigger, and we saw what happened, and he threw two just piss poor decisions on those interceptions, kind of thrown across your body, close to the end zone, and he didn't make those mistakes. BYU was credited with the sack. Timmy was running out of bounds and ran out of bounds a yard shy of the line of scrimmage, so it got marked as a sack. But I mean, really clean game outside of that 4th and 1 fumbled snap from under center. You can't ask for much more from a true freshman quarterback.
Oh, that's exactly what you I think everyone was surprised by how good Timmy was, except for his high school coach. His high school coach has been in people's mentions and saying, I told you so the entire time. And all credit to him. I kind of briefly spent spat with him before the season, and I was like, listen, man, I'm excited to watch, Timmy. Like, he seems really athletic. And one thing he's been preaching this entire time is he is not a dual threat quarterback. He was considered a dual threat quarterback by all the major recruiting services for probably a not too great of a reason. But he's a thrower first. He absolutely will look to throw as much as possible. But he can run and get himself, and get his feet set, everything like that, get outside the pocket and make the run if he has to. And I think that's the key thing that we need to remember with, I know that everyone wants to do this comparison and everyone wants to say it. Oh, he looks like Q. Oh, he looks like Q. Like he looks like Quinn. No. He's Timmy. He's Timmy McLean. He's going to be a different quarterback. We can start throwing the comparisons out there when he, starts breaking Quentin's touchdown records or, anything like that, or he starts creeping up record books there. But let's let Timmy be Timmy. Let's not give him that expectation or those marks or anything like that just yet. I mean, the kid's only had 2 starts, so he's had a fantastic start to his USF career here. But let's let Timmy be Timmy. Let's let Charlie Wise figure out, setting him up for success and run from there. But before we tie this off, Nate, I want to bring up one thing. Very important. Last week when we were making the predictions, and the 55-10 I think was out the door within like 5 minutes of the game. But I did make a prediction there towards the end. Do you remember what that was, Nate?
That both teams would have fun.
Both teams would have fun. But more importantly, that if USF is able to cover, I would get a ranch soda.
They did cover.
They did cover. So I have here some Lester's Fixins ranch soda, and I figured ranch is pretty good, but ranch isn't as good unless you have some wings to go with it.
Oh my God!
So I'm gonna be over here for a minute while we crack these bad boys open. Here's some ASMR for everyone. That's the good stuff. Shout out to Rocket Fizz and oh Jesus, the camera's on me now.
All eyes on you.
Is in St. Pete, Florida. I think there's also one in Weston Chapel. Large selection of sodas. A lot of them look terrible, and this one is one of them. I'll get some sips going.
Oh my god!
Smells like ranch.
What's the vintage here?
I'm gonna guess it was sitting on the shelves for a little bit longer than it should have. But I'm gonna be completely honest.
A buttermilk bouquet.
It's actually I won't be around, but it tastes just like ranch.
Now, what I need you to do is Stone Cold Steve Austin style double.
Oh no! I planned on getting a cup over here and mixing these two together here in a second.
I won't ask you to bash them together, but
yeah,
I think if you go at it double,
nice little palate cleanser.
Yeah, just I had to clean it down a little bit more actually.
With some vinegar.
I wish I could describe the taste other than the fact that just imagine ranch.
Yeah, we got it.
You dip the fry in ranch, but it's just really fucking sweet. It's almost like they dumped a thing of sugar in it. And wouldn't you guess it, there's 89% of my daily intake of sugar in this bottle.
I'm shocked by that.
So I had that one before, and it's pretty bad. I'm excited to try this though. I'm glad this is going off the rails, by the way.
We're going to a solo here.
Yeah, it's got pure cane sugar in it, so there's not much of a difference between actual buffalo wings and this. So this will be my live first taste on this one because I've had that ranch one before. It smells like orange soda, which is terrifying, and I'm really not looking forward to this one. Oh God.
Is it spicy?
It's not spicy at all.
That's unfortunate.
My oh God was.
It
so actually good. Tastes kind of good.
Can we get a Stone Cold double real quick?
Oh yeah, here we'll get a double here. Just throwing this out there, it tastes exactly like Fanta. There's a little bit of spice in there, but it's really not much, and it's probably because it's warm. But we'll get a nice mixture here going for everyone. And
oh my God, kids, don't try that at home. The actions expressed by Robert Steeg in this video are solely his and not responsible of the Daily Stampede and/or Irish 31.
Does it pair well?
Please drink responsibly.
Does it pair well?
It pairs well. No, it's fucking terrible. And again, I'll say it. The buffalo soda is not that bad. I'm actually kind of shocked by it's a little pleasant at times, but this ranch soda just it tastes like I don't even know. I can't even. I wish I could. If you guys are gonna come to the Irish 31 thing, I'll bring this and we'll really spread we'll spread the joy around and see if more people love it.
So you should submit that to the Brewfest or submit your own concoction there.
Ranch beer.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm so grossed out, dude. I have a very weak constitution, as is. In middle school, my best friend, who was the best man at my wedding, his entire goal during lunch in middle school was just to try to get me to throw up. And he succeeded more than I would care to admit. So yeah, that's going to be a hard pass for your boy. But veering so far back on track, South Florida heads to Dallas this weekend. Man, what a hard segue. Do you guys have whiplash? Because I do. USF travels to Dallas this weekend to face the SMU Mustangs, who are 4-0, absolutely running through their schedule right now. Tanner Mordecai, we've already touched on, is an absolute beast. What Sonny Dice has been able to do in 4 years at that program has been nothing short of incredible. He saw the flaw in the system and exploited it. our former pal, well, I guess he's still a pal, Colin Sherwin, has been on this for quite a while. He saw what he was doing and followed it really closely, and we're seeing the fruits of his labor right now. I think they won 10 games in 2019. They won 7 last year. They're on track to really put up some ridiculous numbers. Their offense, somehow Reggie Roberson is still in college.
No.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but he's still there. And Steeg, I know you're really high on Preston Stone, but I don't think he's ever going to see the field, man.
That was before Tanner Mordecai transferred in. I love Preston Stone. That kid's going to be great. Probably UTSA next year or something like that. But man, Tanner Mordecai is just. When I saw he transferred over there, I was like, all right, go ahead and put him as AAC Player of the Year. He's way too talented for this conference. Just straight up, probably that close to winning the Oklahoma job, and now he's a quarterback with some of the best wide receivers in the conference to throw to from top to bottom. I know Calvin Austin over at Memphis is, putting up ridiculous numbers as well, but for the amount of depth that SMU has at receiver, I mean, it's truly a pick your poison experience when you play the Mustangs. I mean, you play man and your DBs are going to get burned. You play zone, someone's going to be open. They're way too talented on offense, and quite despite this most recent endeavor at TCU, they're quite disciplined as well, and they keep Tanner pretty clean throughout the game.
Yeah, so haven't allowed a sack so far this year.
I mean, this is probably the most, and I know the Florida game was daunting, and the NC State game was daunting, and playing at BYU was daunting. Like, this was the game when I looked at the schedule this year, and after watching week one, that was the game that I was like, yeah, that's the game we're going to get boat race just to hell at. That's the game that's the USF faithful are going to be very upset for multiple reasons, and it's getting closer and closer to 0 hour, and boy, does my throat hurt just thinking about it. And I don't think it's the Buffalo soda.
But we can't be sure. So I just want to do a quick rundown on Tanner's stats because they are absolutely ridiculous through 4 games. Let me make sure I get the numbers right here. He is 98 of 139. He's completing 70.5% of his passes for 1,260 yards. He has 20 touchdowns. He's averaging 317 yards a game. In game 1, he threw 7 touchdown passes against Abilene Christian, and then threw 5 at Louisiana Tech. And then, the other 2, he had 8. So he's just kind of picking apart any defense that he sees. And, all right, fine. Yet if we can shut down Tanner Mordecai, and shut down their passing game, the Bulls should be able to win, right? Wrong. They are averaging over 220 yards on the ground. Ulysses Bentley IV, just a top-notch name. He's rushed for 403 yards and 2 scores. He's averaging 7.6 yards a game, averaging just over 100 yards per game. Trey Siggers, averaging 4.9 yards. Tanner himself has chipped in 121 with a score himself. I mean, this team is just absolutely loaded, right? And it's a really pick your how do you want to die kind of choose your own adventure game at this point. Seth, what can USF do to slow down or even just stay in front of SMU long enough to compete?
Maybe slip like some ranch soda into their water bottles before the game might help. They're really good. They're top 15 in yards per play. They're top 10 in a stat called expected points added. So we're like every yard, depending on down, yard line, every play is contextualized into points. So how many points did you add by getting this 10-yard gain on 2nd and 3? They're top 10 in that stat, right behind. They're not too far behind Florida, who USF's already played in, just ahead of Alabama, just for some context on where they are offensively.
All good things.
They're really good. So with how USF's defense is playing this year, which if you weren't sure how that is, USF is currently 128th in yards per play. Given up defensively, they're giving up an average of 7.68 yards per play. So, not great. And then the problem is, and we'll go over this a little bit more in depth tomorrow in the film room. The problem is a lot of people are like, oh, we're playing too much man. You're actually not playing man, but far enough down the field, everything turns into man. So if it's 3 deep zone, once I get 30 yards down the field into your deep third, it's one-on-one. The problem is when you want to play a soft zone and try to keep stuff in front of you, if you can't get a pass rush, which USF does not have the 3 guys that can get a pass rush like Arkansas or even BYU does sometimes, where those guys are just animals up front, you're going to leave yourself for the quarterback to be able to take some shots downfield, and that all turns into one-on-one coverage. When you mix that with like play action, and again, we'll see it tomorrow where play action hits the safeties in the middle of the field to step up, and now it's one-on-one with a lot of room. That's really tough to stop. So you can't. It's going to be tough to sit back and play zone because I think they can pick you apart. I think what you're going to have to do is just mix it up a lot, do a lot of different things, try to confuse them, and just try to sneak out some turnovers and then hope on offense you take advantage of the extra possessions and win a shootout. I don't think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think USF wins if it's a low-scoring game. Well, I mean, they could, but I just don't think it's going to get low. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game if USF wins. You're going to have to hold, just get a couple stops here and there, maybe do a good job with the mythical middle 8. Maybe you can steal a possession there by getting a 2-for-1. That kind of thing. You're going to have to really win on the margins to stop them. I just don't see it happening with how good they are offensively, not just, as you said, not just throwing, where they have 3 really good receivers and a really good tight end that I think also transferred from Oklahoma. They also have a really good running back, and they're able to run the ball too. So it's really difficult. You kind of just have to mix a lot of things up, see if you can confuse Mordecai, get yourself a pick, get your offense an extra possession, or maybe steal something if you get a stop, block a punt, something on special teams. You're going to have to do something out of the ordinary and try to steal a possession because I think both teams are going to be able to go up and down the field, it seems like.
Yeah, and you mentioned their receiving core. Danny Gray, 20 catches, 358 yards, 5 touchdowns. Reggie Roberson, who's been in college since I think Lincoln was in office, 17 catches, 211 yards, 2 scores. Rashid Rice, 14 catches, 227 yards, 5 touchdowns. Grant Calcaterra is the tight end transfer, 13 catches, 2 scores. Bentley has a touchdown himself. Jordan Curley has 6 catches, 87 yards, 2 scores. Nolan Matthews Harris, 4 catches, 53 yards, 2 scores. If you're keeping track, that's 7 guys who have scored, who have caught a receiving touchdown. All of them are responsible for at least 2 touchdowns accounted for, rushing and passing when you include Bentley. I mean, this is one of the more complete offenses that USF is going to face. This is it's a tall task. If USF was fully healthy, it'd be a tall task. And now you're asking, Jalen Herring, Matthew Hill in Game 5 as a free safety to step in, and TJ Robinson without Christian Williams to step in and prove effective against a really talented offense, a really smart head coach, and a really talented quarterback. It's a tough thing to do. And the Bulls, as you mentioned, Seth, they're not getting any pressure up front, and SMU hasn't allowed a sack. So something's got to give, and I would lean more heavily on SMU continuing to not allow a sack than USF breaking through this offensive line, who the entire left side are seniors, and they've kind of moved around some pieces, but they're still really, really effective at protecting, keeping Tanner upright.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough task. I think your hope is, maybe you get some stops in the red zone once the field tightens up a little bit. Like last week, you get a stop in the red zone, you block a field goal attempt. That's a big win for you. You need things like that. The fear is, and the problem is, that this offense is better than the one you saw last week. This is better than BYU. They throw the ball better. I don't know if they run the ball better, but they run the ball really well too. And they're a little bit different, I think, stylistically in the way they run the ball. But this is probably a better offense than you saw last week, and we saw what happened last week. So that's got to be the big worry. I think that you kind of have to get into a shootout, and this is a game where Jeff Scott, you're going to have to go for it on fourth down, maybe more than you'd like to, but he's shown he's pretty aggressive in the past. But you're going to have to take some of those risks, roll the dice, no punting once you pass the 50, that kind of stuff, because you've got to maximize every possession on offense, because I think they're going to on the other side of the ball. So,
hey, you mentioned the red zone, right? SMU, they're hitting teams with big plays, right? They've had 16 red zone opportunities. They've scored on 12 of them, which is pretty good, but they've only scored 10 times, 10 touchdowns on those 16 red zone possessions. So you can combat that a little bit. And, I harped on it last week, is you got to win the red zone battle. And Jeff Scott said in his press conference today, we had 2 4th and 1s, and you had 3 missed tackles between those 2 4th and 1s at the goal line. And it's a different ball game. They're doing live tackling this week. That's where USF's going to have to thrive. They can't continually get beat over the top like SMU likes to do, right? You've got to shorten that field up. Give yourself a better opportunity to play defense. When you've got the back of the end zone as an extra defender, so to speak, it really kind of helps you a little bit. And, on the flip side, SMU's only allowed 7 touchdowns in 16 opponents' red zone opportunities. So, again, you got to cash in on those opportunities when you get them. Put the pressure on SMU, right? That's what you're going to have to do. And he's susceptible to interceptions. He threw 3 last week. They've turned the ball over 7 times already this year. So stealing a possession is a way to go. USF went for that onside kick with 5 minutes left because they were trying to steal the possession. They knew they couldn't stop BYU if they gave the ball back with a full field, so they tried to steal a possession. Why don't you try to steal a possession a little bit earlier? I mean, you give them a short field, but again, that the back of the end zone it becomes another defender. So you're not having to guard 100 yards or what have you, 75 yards. You're having to guard 35, 40. It will help at some part. So maybe you do that. Be a little bit more aggressive this week. Seth, I want to ask you, between Florida and BYU, USF's game plan defensively has kind of been take away the run, make them make the throws. And they're 0 for 2 in making and successfully, forcing those two teams to make mistakes in the passing game. Do you think that they kind of switch it up and try to take away the throw because Tanner is so effective just throwing darts across the field?
Yeah, this is something that our friend Colin brought up on Twitter during the game. Was we don't want to ever see USF playing man-to-man again, right? And I was like, it kind of depends. If you sit back in a soft zone, they can. Last week, BYU was just going to run the ball in your throat, and Jeff Scott said as much after the game. That was kind of almost verbatim what he said. If you sit back and just play for the pass, totally, they're going to run the ball at you, and that's how they play. As you said, they try to play Florida by taking away the run first. I think this may be a week where you kind of sit back, try to just keep everything in front of you, and then end up playing red zone roulette, as Bud Elliott, I think, calls it, where you just get down to the red zone and hope on 2 of those trips in the red zone, they kick a field goal. And then you hope on offense, you cash all yours in for touchdown, and then you win the game. That could be kind of what the strategy is this week, especially with lack of depth. Maybe just keep everything in front of you. See if they'll make a mistake throwing into coverage. Like we see, Barry Odom doing at Arkansas last year against Ole Miss, where they felt like they were kind of undermanned compared to what Ole Miss had on offense. Dropped 8. I think Matt Corral threw 6 interceptions, just kept trying to force it in there. Maybe you can get Tanner Moore to do that. Like you said, he threw 3 picks last week. He wasn't starting, so these are not like he's played. He's a veteran, has played a ton of games. He wasn't starting in Oklahoma, so he maybe you can come in and kind of confuse him, get him to press a little bit, and then make them kind of earn their way down the field really slowly, passing the ball. It's tough. I think you're going to have to present different looks, because I think if you present the same look to these really good offenses, they eventually figure it out and they figure out how to attack it. So you're going to have to change it up. But I don't think this would be a bad game to kind of play off a little more. But again, what does that do, right? Play off, then rally and tackle. I've seen a lot of rallying this year. I haven't seen a lot of tackling. So if you feel pretty good that you're going to be able to tackle these guys in space, then yeah, it's a great idea. But if I'm going to play off, let them give the ball to the guys in space, and then I can't come up and make tackles, well, then what's the point, So you're better off just playing straight man coverage and hoping they just throw one to you if you can't come up and tackle. So that's going to be kind of a determination too. Are they able to rally and tackle and kind of and leverage the ball and push the ball back into pursuit and all that kind of good stuff? If you can do that and make them slowly work their way down the field, that increases their chances to make a mistake. If you can't tackle and they can just turn a 5-yard hitch into a 40-yard pass, well, now you're in trouble.
I couldn't said it better myself, Seth. This is, I think it's, Florida. Those first three games that that they've lost, you kind of knew the outcome was to be expected, right? Just where USF was progressing from, and then I think SMU is the same. It's the same kind of scenario, right? This team is really good. They should be ranked. I think they're ranked in one of the polls, if not both. This is a very talented team. We do a AC blogger, power ranking every single week through Fear the Wave, and I've consistently had them second behind Cincinnati, but excuse me, they're closing in on Cincinnati, and if they continue this way, it's going to be neck and neck. Depending on how Cincinnati does at Notre Dame, it's going to be pretty close.
I mean, Cincinnati's defense is just as elite and talented as SMU's offense. I have not looked at SMU's schedule off the top of my head. If that is a game that is played this year, SMU and Cincinnati, that is going to be a fun game to watch. But I mean, it's you couldn't have asked for kind of like a 4 out of 5 worst first games to play for USF. Really, honestly, truly, I don't know how they do it every single year, but we always manage to play some middling Power 5 team that's absolutely on fire. You're out of conference. You play your one FCS school, and then you get thrown into the Wolves playing Dalvin Cook at his peak, or you get true freshman Anthony Richardson, who's coming into his own, and NC State coming and going out hot, and then now you start conference and you're like, okay, we had the tough out of conference. Let's see if we can ease into our American Athletic Conference. It's like, nope, fuck you. You get one of the best quarterbacks in college football and one of the most elite receiving units that you have to cover with true freshman transfers and not very talented and well-versed secondaries. So that's kind of USF's luck right now. To Seth's point, I think if you can, steal a possession or two, whether it's via special teams, via holding their own on fourth down. I mean, if you look back at that BYU game, they did. I mean, that first fourth down and goal, I think they did a really good job in that goal line stand. I really wish they would have reviewed the over the top thing that happened there. I don't think he made it, but I wasn't there and I didn't see the replays or anything like that. But USF did pretty well to get into 2 fourth down situations on goal to go situations. They just couldn't tackle on one of them, and then one of them I think should have been reviewed, and I don't think he got it. So you look at that, they may have been 0-2 on fourth downs, and then the game split. And then overall, BYU went 2 for 7 on third downs. That's nothing to shake your nose at or anything. So the defense made progress at least a little bit in some aspects, but like Seth mentioned, they're not tackling well right now, and now you got to prove that you can tackle with some guys that can very easily break tackles across the board. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how USF responds here, because I think Glenn Spencer and Jeff Scott know what the big, red circle that they had to put on this week is. The defense has to shore themselves up. The defense has to find a way to make it work. And there's as much as people on Twitter think that the coaching staff doesn't know the issues, the coaching staff knows the issues. They know what they have to do here. It's whether or not some of the players can execute the plays or whether or not SMU throws something they haven't seen yet. So we'll see what Glenn Spencer can dial up here. I'm looking forward to seeing, if they can solve some of these issues that they have.
And the injuries have on the defensive side of the ball have kind of compounded some of these issues, right? We hear that they're live tackling for the first time in a long time this week. Why? I'm sure some people are thinking, why aren't they live tackling? Because they have no depth. You're more likely to get hurt live tackling. So when your depth is down, you can't do that as much in practice, right? At this point, I think it's kind of a desperation thing. That's like, we need to work on it. So, whatever. We're kind of strapped anyways. We're going to have to play guys that don't have a ton of experience anyways. But we got to work on this. So they're working on it. But that's kind of that issue was compounded a little bit by your lack of depth, because now you have to pull back a little in practice because you don't want those injuries in practice. I mean, one of the bigger injuries of the year happened in practice. A guy going up for a ball or diving out and hurting, one of the transferred defensive backs that came in that looked like he was going to be starting at safety.
Yeah, and then a bus came out of nowhere
and ran both the quarterback and the receiver slap over. So that hurt the depth on that side of the ball, because those guys were recovering from a bus trampling. But I think on the positive side for this game for USF is you look at the matchup on the other side of the ball. SMU's given up 6.18 yards per play, which is 104th in the country. They're ranked in the hundreds in that expected points added on defense as well. They're okay against. They're like kind of middle of the pack against the run, but they're 115th or 114th against the pass. So you have the opportunity to move the ball on them. This may be another week where you have to slow down your tempo stuff a little bit, like they did against BYU. And that's something we talked about against North Carolina State, that, if you don't slow it down, your defense is going to see 100 plays and they're just going to be dead. And that kind of happened early against North Carolina State. It looked like it could have been happening in this BYU game, but they really did a good job slowing it down. You can be no huddle and play and still kind of get some of the advantages without going really fast, right? If you don't change personnel, the defense can't sub. So if you look back at Florida's game against Alabama, Florida never changed personnel at all. And then in the second half, they had drives of like 10 plays, 11 plays, 11 plays, because those guys just got worn out because you couldn't sub defensive players out. USF in the second half had long drives, right, and weren't doing a ton of subbing. They weren't bringing a ton of guys in and out. They did a little bit, but not a ton, right? So by the end of those drives, when you're trying to punch it in the goal line, you're just running through arm tackles because those guys are dead. So there is something to it. You can still get some of the fatigue factors and some of that stuff. It'll take a little bit longer, but you can get it without having to go crazy fast, which also helps your defense out. So I wonder if we see that too. Maybe it's a game where you just have to match plays as much as possible, so you got to go fast. But I think you may see USF kind of hold back a little bit again, pull the reins back, and try to slow it down for the defense a little bit.
Absolutely. And, Jeff Scott kind of touched on that at his press conference today on Tuesday, kind of, giving it a precursor, that second half last week, a 15-play, a 19-play drive. That's what USF's going to have to do to you really don't want the best unit on the field. If you're USF, you don't want the best unit on the field for more than 20 minutes on Saturday, because the best unit on the field between the two teams is SMU's offense. So having those prolonged drives, I know BYU's offensive coordinator, I think, kind of gave pause or, raised questions. He thought it was really interesting that USF, had a 9-minute drive in the second half. And it's because, frankly, USF's defense had allowed 8.9 yards per play. And you've got to be able to slow that down somehow. And the best way to keep an offense off the field, sustain drives running the ball. And that's what Jaron Mangum was able to do. Brian Batty was able to do. and Timmy McClain. So that's going to be the recipe for success for USF. Have those sustained long drives, as you mentioned, Seth. Don't black out this defense with multiple 3-and-outs in a row. Like, one or two maybe, but you can't put them back to back to back and expect it not to be, a shootout and a blowout early on. The thing helping USF in that regard here, SMU has started slow in the first quarter against these teams. They're outscoring their opponents 28-24 in the first quarter, but then it jumps significantly in the second quarter once they figure out the defense and how they're playing them. As you mentioned, Seth, like having to be, defenses have to be multiple, right? That's the cliche for any new coach is, we're going to be multiple on defense. They start to figure it out, and now they figure it out, and I think they're outscoring their opponents 51-20 in the second quarter, and then it's just running roughshod, and they're up 20 points in the second, third, and fourth quarter against their opponents in each quarter, through the rest of the game. So if you can sustain a drive, one long drive per quarter, it's gonna help you eventually, right? And that's what you got to do. Keep it close in the fourth quarter, and maybe you get SMU to tighten up. And Timmy is unencumbered by the fact that he hasn't done this much before in college. So the young and dumb thing is very prevalent, and you don't understand the moment until you're out of the moment when you're that young. So maybe that can prove effective for him as well.
And then imagine if you start with a long drive and score, then you get a stop, and then you have another long drive and score. And now all of a sudden, SMU's down 2 scores possibly, and they're a little frustrated because they haven't got the ball very much this game. Maybe your 2 drives and their drive take up the whole first quarter, or take up a quarter and a half. Now, then they start to press, and that's maybe where you can get those kind of turnovers and that kind of stuff where they're not playing super clean because they're trying to press. So this may be one of those games where you try to hold a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to bring this up. Matt Brown at Matt Brown CFP, great follow. It's the 15th anniversary to the greatest quarter. I'm reading a tweet here. It's a 15th anniversary to the greatest quarter of all time. To open the second half, Auburn went on a 17-play, 85-yard drive that lasted 8 minutes and 38 seconds that ended in a field goal. Then they recovered an onside kick and went on a 13-play, 52-yard drive that took up 6:30, scoring on the first play of the fourth quarter. They took up the entire third quarter of offensive possession. Now, if USF can do that and just literally steal an entire quarter of offense,
there you go.
Why not, right? But that's what it's going to have to be. I don't think it'll be that drastic, right? But, I mean, why not? That's what you're going to have to do. Maybe get a quick hitter, once or twice, but these long sustained drives, go back to like the 90s and just ground and pound this team into the dirt.
Yeah.
Now,
so what do you think, Steeg? Are you a ground and pound guy, or are you a quick strike guy?
I mean, let's
ask your girlfriend.
Let's damn it. I was waiting for that. For me at least, what I would love to see out of this game versus what I think USF needs to do to win the game are two very different things. And it's putting me in a little bit of a moral dilemma. Because for me, I would love to see Timmy complete, these 17-yard digs and these 15-yard hitches, and be able to make the throws between the hashes, and develop the quarterback skills that he needs to do. But I know if that's the game plan that Charlie Weiss and Jeff Scott go into for this game, we're going to lose like 62-28. Like it's going to look like how Tulane and Oklahoma were. Like, yeah, Tulane's got a great quarterback in Michael Pratt, but with the style of offense they were running, they were hitting like 15, 20-yard passes and stalling out drives that way. Then Oklahoma would turn right back around, or Ole Miss, I should say, would turn right back around and score almost immediately. So it's like, do I want USF to win or have the chance to win, or do I want USF to have a fun day on offense? That's the moral dilemma that I'm in right now with this game, and it's I love what they've done with Timmy. I think and Seth, I know you and I kind of talked about last week with getting the playbook to fit to the quarterback that you want to run, because you can't just do this whole prepare to have Cade go in there, prepare to have Timmy go in there, prepare for Kitchers to go in there. Now you can kind of say, all right, let's go on to the second page of Timmy's playbook. Let's circle a bit on the third page here as well, and prepare him to make longer reads and go from the first read to the second read to the third read and see if he can progress a little bit that way, and even in the RPO offense, be able to read linebackers and safeties and whatnot. But is that going to help USF win this game? Probably not. I think that ground and pound style that was working against BYU was perfect, and I think if you stole a possession there, again, 4th and 1 at the goal where I think should have been overturned, you're now looking at a very different game going into the last drive with it being 28 to 20. Going into that last drive, now that means a little bit more. So I don't know. I want both teams to have fun. I want, like I said, Tanner Mordecai for AAC Player of the Year, first Heisman Trophy winner outside of Power 5 conference. He's going to look well. He's going to look fun. He's going to have a great day out there. I hope USF is able to replicate and get it and out for first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Maybe SMU runs away with it.
Yeah, final thoughts. Here's my final thought. Jerry Springer style here. Man, before we get into the predictions, I think we should probably make it clear, regardless of the outcome here, there's still games to be won on this schedule. There's a good, healthy chunk after the bye week, and there's a bye week next week where they can start to get some folks back, and then they get Tulsa at home, and then there's the Temple and ECU, and there's a good chunk of that 3-game chunk after that bye week is going to prove more. Is going to tell you more about what this team is than these first 5 games. So I don't want USF fans, and I'm gonna have to rein myself in here because I do love to be hyperbolic on the Twitter during a game because it's fun, and it's easy. I like to get my jokes off. To that, the outcome of this SMU game is likely to have no bearing on the rest of the season. All right, so there will still be 6 games left. There's still 3 very winnable games on there, and depending on how Tulane kind of figures it out, I still love Michael Pratt, but depending on how they figure it out, depending on how Houston figures it out, I mean they were in a slugfest. They almost lost to Navy, so it's some very winnable games still to be had on the rest of the schedule. Your first 5 games were just murder ball. And there's really nothing you can do about that. I think a lot of people thought maybe SMU would have taken a step back with the amount of talent that they lost. There was still a question mark at quarterback. Tanner Mordecai has filled in that question quite nicely because Shane Buechele was a fantastic quarterback for SMU last year, set a lot of records for SMU. You bring in just another quarterback. So that's where the consternation was. There's still a lot to be played for. The results will not have any bearing on the last 6 games of the season. I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward, getting closer to Saturday. Enjoy the game. I want to see improvement. Be better at tackling. Jeff Scott said it's been a major issue. That's why they're working on it this week. Let's see if that pays off. Let's see if the offense can carry over what they carried over from BYU. Let's have those minor improvements going into the bye week. Now Timmy's got basically 2 full weeks to get ready for Tulsa as QB1, get healthy, get some guys back maybe, and now you're coasting through the last half of the season. That's what I want to say before we get to predictions. Seth, Steeg, am I off base here? What do you guys feel about the output the outcome of this game really is results wise I get it, record wise I get it, but grand scheme of things, not the end of the world.
Yeah, right. I mean, right now, just for reference, right now USF is a 20.5-point underdog on DraftKings. Over under for the game set at 68, so they're seeing a high scoring game here. But they're a 20-point underdog. They were a 23-point underdog last week to BYU. To me, like this market, the spread is kind of the truest sense of where teams are at, really, because you have to put money into it. To like they set a line, you put money in, that moves the line, right? So this is the most efficient market typically, is this betting market, right? So based on that, the odds of you winning are extremely low this week. They were extremely low last week, and you only lost, you covered by quite a bit. So I think you're hoping just to see that same kind of effort. The win would be really great, would be awesome launch pad going into the bye week, going to the rest of the season. It just doesn't seem likely. You just want to see them play well. If it comes down to where it's two guys going up for a ball and their guy makes a play, well, if your guy's in the right position, that's all you can hope for. You want your guys to play well, play to the best of their abilities. If it's not good enough, then it's not. But hopefully you can keep it close like you did last week, and then see what happens come to the end of the game. We talked last week, kind of, if you can keep it close, put some pressure on these teams, see what happens at the end. And you almost gave yourself a chance last week. So you're just hoping to see that again. Give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter. If you've got a chance in the fourth quarter, you've probably been playing pretty well, and that's a good launch pad going into the bye week, going into the rest of the season. Steeg, what do you think?
It's I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's little incremental things that we continue to want to see that hopefully we can continue on. I think one of the big things that I've been probably the most pleased with, especially when you're comparing these USF teams from Jeff Scott era to Sean Strong era, is the penalties. The team is still playing extremely disciplined football. I think against BYU, we only had 3 penalties for 25 yards. I think one of them was a holding call, one of them was a false start, and then one of them was a defensive pass interference. So if you're keeping up this disciplined football style where you're being able to grind out a drive or two here and there, not committing any penalties, being smart with the football, limiting turnovers at all possible, maybe getting a turnover on your side of things to fall your way. I think that I'll count that blocked field goal as a turnover. Doing those little things, and to quote the masterful Ted Lasso, it's not always about the wins and losses in these types of circumstances. Sometimes you're up against Goliath and you're David, and you just got to start throwing rocks and see what you can do and hope something sticks. But at the end of the day, it's about the progress that USF is able to make this season. We've seen progress from week 1 to week 2. We saw progress from week 2 to week 3. We saw a great amount of progress from week 3 to week 4. So now, can we see it again for a 4th, 5th straight week? I don't know how that works. Overall, I think that's where you'll hear us next week say, like, yeah, we may have lost, but there was still progress to be made. Maybe we made a few third down stops, made a few plays on defense. The offense was able to score a few points here and there and make some drives work, but we still lose by 20 and a half. Like, the L at the end of the day doesn't matter too much this season. I think that's pretty much where we're all at as a consensus. Is it doesn't matter about this game. This game's probably going to be watched anyways. But where do we look back and say, yeah, that sucked and they caused a downfall, or hey, they still made some good progress and we can hang our hats on that.
Absolutely. Let's get to these predictions. Last week, I was pretty dang close. In the preview, when we found out Jaron Hall was going to be out, I took away a touchdown for BYU and predicted 38-23 BYU. So pretty close, just a few points off either side. Not bad. Steeg still wildly off, but you'll get there eventually. Seth, No love for USF's offense against BYU. Only gave him 10 points, but
I wasn't a believer. I'm a believer now.
Seth, what is your score prediction for USF at SMU? ESPNU, 4 o'clock on Saturday.
41-24 SMU.
All right. Let's see. The line's 20 and a half, 23 and a half?
20 and a half.
20 and a half.
Over under is 68.
Damn.
That's hot.
Man,
That's pretty.
that's
That's a pretty healthy over under right there.
So you're going USF covers and the under hits. Well, you're no fun. Whoever bets the under. I mean, what person?
I'm trying to be a nice guy. I think USF takes the air out of the ball a little bit.
I do think that they do that. I worry how many times they're going to be able to do that. I think they're good for at least 1.5, but I don't think they're going to be able to put it back to back like they were able to do in the second half. For that reason, I think the under will hit just because of some sustained drives by USF. But I think it's 35-14 SMU. Oh,
who doesn't believe in the offense now?
But those two long drives that they score.
You've been on it there. So this year, I have to defer to your expertise.
I know, man. I still can't believe I nailed that FAMU score. I'm going to take that to the grave.
All right, now let's go to a single for the really good pick here.
Oh God, I hate this. I think speaking from the heart, I think the biggest worry that, and we've already touched on it a little bit, the biggest worry right now is USF goes out there and lays an egg. That's where we're going to start getting a little worried is when, this game's completely out of hand like the last time we played SMU where Boyd and Shane Buechele had the most amount of fun I think I've ever seen. I think I have a bunch of pictures of him still actually coming off the sideline after like a 28-yard wide open pass and touchdown. And he's got the biggest shit-eating grin on his face, and that was midway through the second quarter. I think that's the biggest worry going into this game for us is just USF goes out there, lays an egg, we lose, 55-10 or something. That'd be terrible. But the thing is, USF won't go out there and lay an egg. USF is going to pull a massive upset and win 55-10. Tanner Mordecai, he's thrown 20 touchdowns this year? Throws 20 interceptions this game. Gotta equilibrium, gotta balance it out a little bit. I think Glenn Spencer's going to dial it up. I think we're going to surprise, shock the world a little bit. Maybe the third time's the charm. We played 3 ranked teams to start the year. I think we almost got it on that third try against BYU. SMU, you better watch out, kid. We're coming in hot, and fuck Jim Levitt.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tanner Mordecai.
Jim Levitt resigns at halftime out of shame. He goes to Judy Ginchef, speaks to him at halftime, and says, "Just get out. Get out of there.
Wow.
Tarmac him at home.
Go to the Dagobah system."
Oh my gosh. Oh, all right. Well, before we wrap out, I want to say thank you to Irish 31 for sponsoring this beautiful podcast. Again, go check out the Bulls Brewfest, Irish 31 and the USF Alumni Association this Saturday at Irish 31 West Shore Plaza, Bulls Brewfest. It's starting at 3. Goes through the end of the game. So basically 3 to 8 o'clock. Join Magic 94.9 and a stampede of Bulls fans for a special ramped-up indoor-outdoor Bulls bonus watch party with giant LED screens showing the game, local breweries sampling fall brews, Bulls ticket giveaways from Irish 31, tailgate games, and more. It's free admission and a $10 sampling wristband with 100% of the event proceeds donated to the USF Alumni Association. For Steeg, Seth, and Nathan, this has been another edition of the Bulluminati podcast sponsored by Irish 31. Be safe, drink responsibly, go to the Bulls Brewfest this Saturday. Go Bulls.
I'll be there. Go Bulls.